Welcome to the Rates and Barrels World Baseball Classic preview. Derek Van Riper here with Stephen Nesbitt. Stephen is our resident expert, greatest enthusiast in the Rates and Barrels universe for the World Baseball Classic. Stephen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I don't know if I deserve that moniker, but I'll take it. I have probably followed international baseball more than most around here. I grew up in France, or lived there for the first 7 years of my life, and the son of a real baseball aficionado who did a lot of work to spread the gospel of baseball in France, which is not a place that it's terribly interested in or was terribly interested in baseball. Didn't make this tournament either. But I was a kid watching the bright orange of Team Netherlands back in the 90s and Italy and all that. So certainly have an interest in seeing the game spread globally, and this tournament has done a lot to do that.
Yeah, I think this tournament has had its biggest moment for casual fans now. It's happened, finally. It took a while. There were good moments along the way, but 2023, we had the dream scenario, right? We had a U.S. versus Japan final.
And in a one-run game with 2 gone in the 9th inning, the dream matchup.
We had Shohei Ohtani on the mound with a 3-2 lead in the 9th inning against Mike Trout. I mean, if you were writing a baseball movie in 2023, that is the scenario you would have put on paper that you would have hoped for. And it's an amazing sequence. I was watching it again before we started recording. Ohtani was just throwing heat.
Swing and a miss. A fastball at 100.
He was throwing 100-mile-an-hour cutters, basically. I think he threw 102 in the dirt, so he was just amped up for that. And he snuck one middle by Mike Trout.
2-1. 2-2.
I had forgotten that. I remembered the slider that he got for the strikeout, but I forgot that he really snuck the cheese past the rat, if you will, by blowing one right down the pipe to Trout.
Yeah, in that moment, it felt like that was the challenge. That was, okay, I'm in a short stint here. I'm going to give it everything I've got. And here's the one you get. Here's the one fastball you get. And right down the heart. And once that one gets by Trout, then it's no longer that we're fighting on equal ground. It's like, all right, I've got this. If you walk, it's okay. I'll move on to the next guy. But I'm going to give you the nastiest pitch outside. You can't reach it. And hope you chase. And it was such a cool ending to it.
He struck him out. Ohtani strikes out Trout, and Japan's back on top of the baseball world.
We've now seen, 3 years later, Shohei Ohtani win so much. Win a couple of World Series. He's got a cupboard full of hardware now, but that was the moment we've seen him most excited, right? He was on the mound that time. We'll probably never see Shohei Ohtani on the mound to clinch a championship of any sort again, right? Not typically, unless he transitioned to closer. Right? Your fantasy heads out here, looking to the future, hope he closes games, but that might be the only time we get to see him on the mound or even in the field, just to celebrate the clinching of a title.
You know, I was just thinking, after living through Game 4 of the NLCS last year, I will never, ever doubt anything about Shohei Ohtani. It could be a complete game shutout in a clinching World Series game from him at some point in his career. That actually would not surprise me at this point, but to your point, we saw something that we're very unlikely to see again. And 3 years is a surprisingly long time because, as you alluded to, they were teammates back then. In 2023, Ohtani was about to begin his 6th season as Mike Trout's teammate in Anaheim. In 2023, Ipe Mizuhara was still Shohei Ohtani's translator and maybe his best friend, right? that was only 3 years ago.
Yeah, I was looking back this morning at a story that we did right when the last WBC ended, and the thought was like, well, what would Team USA, if everyone said yes, how good could it be? And I put together a story March 22nd of 2023 that sort of put together a dream team that if everyone said yes, this is the guys I would pick. And 3 years is a long time. I'll say that. To run you quickly through my lineup or my roster, I have Rutschman and Real Muto as the catchers. didn't realize Big Dumper was coming along. Pete Alonso, Matt Olson, Mookie Betts, Trey Turner, Nolan Arenado, playing for Puerto Rico now, Austin Riley, Gunnar Henderson, a couple of corrects in there. But Mike Trout, Kyle Tucker, Michael Harris, Corbin Carroll, Aaron Judge, Bryce Harper, had a lot of the right names, though not all of them are going to play. The pitching staff, though, is where it's a disaster. Corbin Burns, Garrett Cole, both coming off injury. Max Fried, Spencer Strider, Alek Manoah, remember him? Shane McClanahan, and the bullpen to wrap it up was Devin Williams, Josh Hader, David Bednar, Pete Fairbanks, AJ Minter, Scott Barlow, Ryan Helsley, and Garrett Crochet as my long reliever. I would now like him in that rotation, please. So anyway, 3 years is a long time. It's hard to forecast. Even 3 years in the future, when typically we're going to have 4. Guys get older, things change, young stars pop up, and it's hard to forecast this stuff.
I think he did pretty well, actually. Our buddy Zach Buchanan also had a story right off the end of the last World Baseball Classic, and he tiered the teams that were automatically going to be qualified in 2026, which I'm looking back through. He had Japan and the U.S. and the Dominican Republic and Venezuela in the top tier as the favorites. I don't think a lot has changed. We'll kind of break down, what we expect for the quality of competition across each of the pools here in just a little bit. He's got Puerto Rico just in that next tier down with Mexico. Like, that kind of makes sense. One more tier below that, you got Korea, Canada, Cuba kind of in a tier of their own. So I think from like a team structure standpoint, I think that kind of macro trend is more reasonable to try and predict 3 years into the future. But pitching injuries in particular just wreak havoc, right? If you're trying to predict individual pitchers, who's going to be healthy and who's going to be good 3 years from now, I mean, you're playing Dynasty League fantasy baseball in some ways. And look back at your old rosters from 3 years ago. The pitching you had then, it's probably mostly off of your roster right now.
I didn't have that guy who was about to start his first season at LSU. I didn't have him as the A's of that team. Oops.
Yeah.
Catch up to it later.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Okay, but we knew Paul Skeens was a good prospect, and we had no idea he'd be the kind of guy that we'd want kind of co-headlining a rotation for Team USA in 2026. So, I mean, there's a lot we can talk about here. I guess we'll start with just what's new for 2026. The format's actually the same. It's a 20-team field again, 4 pools, 5 teams each. The most games anyone would play is 7. If you go all the way to the championship game, 7 games, which isn't that much. And I think the strong sort of undercurrent for me with the World Baseball Classic over the years is unfortunately similar to that of major league GMs and people in ownership groups, where I'm just kind of like, don't get hurt, don't get hurt, don't get hurt. But the fact of the matter is, we see guys get hurt in spring training games all the time. And I think when you talk to players and say, how different is a spring training game than a World Baseball Classic game, they'll say it's entirely different. A World Baseball Classic game is like a playoff game, or at least as big or bigger than an important regular season game in terms of the intensity. And a spring training game is just finding your own way to create adrenaline, because there's just not a lot of energy in the ballpark there. It's just it's a bizarre environment to prepare for the season. So I've come around, though. I've just come to the point where I want to enjoy the ride. I think you get this really interesting mix. The guys that want to play in this tournament, especially for Team USA, it's increased over the years. I think there's a little more pride in participating in this tournament than there was when it started. That was not the case for most of the other countries in it, and I think that was where I was short-sighted. I was looking too much at which big leaguers are missing instead of looking at it and saying, who's here? Who wants to be here? Because it's been a great event this entire time.
Yeah, I think what you're speaking to is that when you have some stars mixed in with a lot of average, still good Joes, then for a guy to get injured in that setting, you're like, really? Where in reality, it's like, is Gavin Lux getting hurt in a spring training game any worse or any different than Edwin Diaz getting hurt in a competitive game that he's playing for his country? In the end, not really. It's an injury. It can happen in any setting. It can happen in the weight room. It can happen at home, slipping in the shower. And so that's true. The more stars and superstars get on board, though, I think the easier it is to say, okay, listen, there's risk. We all have to understand that injuries could happen, injuries will happen. But you know what? For me, the viewer, I'm actually pretty excited to see it now. And that wasn't always the case, that you were, especially pool play games. Like, did you have any interest in pool play games in the past? Not so much, where now I think there will be some intrigue. I think every pool has least two really solid teams to watch for. And then once you get into the quarters, the semis, the finals, and we saw last time, the U.S. should have gotten knocked out in the quarterfinals. They needed a moment against Mexico from Trey Turner to even survive to that point. And so that's where everyone's going to truly be locked in. I think pool play will probably not garner crazy interest from sort of an average fan perspective. But once you get past that, I mean, I think everyone's going to be on board with what's happening.
Yeah, by the way, if you're going to tune in for pool play, you're going to need to check the viewing guide. I think some of the games are on Tubi. Some of the games that are being played in Tokyo out of Pool C are going to be on at some strange times of day, depending on where you live on this planet. So just be very mindful that you're going to have to search a little bit, do a little bit of pre-homework there as you're trying to sort out your viewing options. But I think pool play of the World Baseball Classic, if I'm running that up against a Cactus League or Grapefruit League game, I'm watching the pool play from the World Baseball Classic.
With same as last time, there are 5 teams in each of the 4 pools. Top 2 teams advance to the knockout stage. Bottom team, the 5th place team, will have to reapply for entry. It'll have to go through the qualifier stage, which a number of teams did. We have a couple of new teams here. The one I'm very interested in, we'll get to, is Brazil, which has a star prep pitcher in Joseph Contreras, Jose's kid, who's going to be a draft eligible kid this year, Dante Bichette Jr. So anyway, some new faces, but mostly it is the same field. And like you said, the power ranking, as it were, each of the powers doesn't change that quickly when you're talking about the international stage. One guy not being there, one guy joining isn't so different. The biggest change this year, 2 of the biggest changes, are the U.S. stepping up in stature because an already good team got even more stars, and Puerto Rico just getting decimated by the insurance issues that have sort of been, I think, the early plague of this round of WBC. We have not seen it like this in the past. Maybe this was happening more in the past. We just didn't hear it. We chalked most things up to the team said no. We were talking earlier about Jazz Chisholm. Did he play in 2024, 2023? No, he didn't. He had played previously in 2017 qualifier for Great Britain, but didn't get approved for 2023 because he had an injury and the Marlins said no. We were used to hearing a lot of that, especially with pitchers who had recent arm injuries. But this was the year that the insurance reared its ugly head, and someone's got to be on the hook for this, for teams to be okay, for their guys going. It's an unfortunate truth, I think, of where we're situated. Yeah,
I was reading the story that Evan Drellick and Ken Rosenthal wrote about why it's so different, and the heightened insurance concerns stem from injuries to Jose Altuve and Edwin Diaz during the last WBC in 2023. Right? That's it's real, of course. Like, If it happens, it's going to be accounted for, and it's going to cost more money. And I know Bad Bunny tried to swoop in and help with the insurance issues that Francisco Lindor and Carlos Correa ran into. That was not allowed, which is unfortunate. And I'm finding Bad Bunny to be more like a good bunny, but
that was tough. This is it's clearly tough. A dad pod to drop that dad joke there.
100%.
Yeah. I think that MLB and MLPA were like, this is a bridge too far for us, but I would have loved to see. I'd love to see it. A group that just sponsored by a global star. It's like, you know what? I'll take this. I'll take the risk.
Yeah, it ends up being a significant policy for some of the guys that have mega deals, and that is the case for a lot of the players that are being held out. Mike Trout is not part of the tournament this year because of insurance issues. Question mark? Would he be on Team USA if he was cleared? Like, as a kind of maybe like a legacy player? Like, I mean, the outfielders on the roster, Roman Anthony, Byron Buxton, Pete Crow Armstrong, Aaron Judge. Like, you think about PCA's defense in center field, phenomenal. You got Buxton as an option that can play that really well too. I like Roman Anthony more than Mike Trout at this moment. Yeah. If I had a scenario like we described up top from 3 years ago, if the game's on the line and you've got some other team's closer out there, like, who would you rather have swinging the bat, like the 2026 version of Mike Trout or Roman Anthony?
I think this was a situation where it worked out for everybody. I think the Angels would love for Mike Trout to not go play more games. Mike Trout understands he's at a point in his career he needs to do something different, and he's won a gold medal in this event already. He had a moment to end another one on the wrong end of it, unfortunately. And for Team USA, there are better options out there currently. Can he still swing the bat? Yes. Is Roman Anthony a better all-around option? Pretty strong yes on that. So you look at the roster. There is room for a Paul Goldschmidt. So is there room for a Mike Trout? Sure, in theory, it'd be fine. But if you had unlimited roster size, if you had 5 extra spots or whatever, sure, bring him along. He might get an at bat or two. But for how the roster is currently constructed, I'm much happier, I think, for Team USA having Roman Anthony than running it back with Mike Trout.
Looking forward to seeing if that prediction we just kind of put out there actually pays off, if we're actually right about that. Let's go pool by pool. Let's talk about these groups a little bit. Pool A, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Canada, Panama, and Colombia. They'll be playing their pool games in San Juan starting on March 6th. I mean, Puerto Rico, even without Lindor and Correa with the insurance issues, and Javier Baez, who was suspended for a positive test for marijuana. Like, what are we doing?
It's more
here?
than those guys, too, right? It's Jose Barrios, it's Emilio Pagan, Alexis Diaz. Like, they really got wrecked. And then Javier Baez is dealing with a marijuana suspension. I think I saw that he's going to be with the team. But, they truly got wrecked. And yet, it's a soft pool. Like, this is a weak pool, and I see them still as clearly the favorite.
Yeah, I think I'd be worried more about this team in the knockout phase than in pool play. I mean, I think you still have enough quality big leaguers up and down, familiar names. Interesting, Nolan Arenado is actually in the infield mix.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Played the last two with the U.S., 1 silver, 1 gold, and now he goes to play for Puerto Rico. That's neat.
Yeah, so nice to see that, getting one more run at it. I think Elliot Ramos, Willie Castro, Eddie Rosario. We'll see if he's still got something left in the tank. He is on the roster for Puerto Rico this year. They have a major league starting catcher in Christian Vasquez and a longtime starter in Martin Maldonado, so they're fine there. Like, infield relative to the top end teams is probably a little bit weak, but I think the question for a lot of teams that are maybe second tier in terms of their ability to be considered favorites to go and win the whole thing is the quality of pitching. But I think the thing that levels that off a little bit are the restrictions on pitchers. We're not going to have teams that have major league aces throwing those guys out there for 6 or 7 innings, right? So you're kind of leveling the playing field in that area just a little bit, even if a lot of these rosters are dealing with combinations of relievers or prospects or guys that we haven't even seen pitch stateside before.
This guy's relevant to this someone on this team. Can you tell me, because this is another point to the evolution of this event, the growing popularity in it, but also the way in which still is sort of restricted and limited by the time of year and teams' requests. Can you tell me the starting pitchers from the last 2 finals? I can give you the teams if you forget.
Well, the U.S.-Japan final was Merrill Kelly for the U.S., right? Who started that game for Japan? Man, I should just take a shot at it. I'll say Sagano started that game for Japan.
And then you're back to 2017.
No chance. No idea who started. No.
So last time around it was Merrill Kelly you got, and then Shota Imanaga for Japan.
Okay.
Good, but neither country's best pitcher or even like top 3, certainly at the time. And prior to that, it was Seth Lugo for Puerto Rico and Marcus Stroman for the States. And Lugo, it's a great story. He's got the Puerto Rican heritage and getting to play for them. But at that point, who is Seth Lugo at that point, right? He's like a Mets longman, I think. Mets wingman before like he was the Seth Lugo of today. And so that's been like the great issue that this event has had is that you have not seen the best of the best pitchers. Even if they are in the tournament, they may not be lined up for the final. Because you're dealing with the knockouts, there are 3 knockout games, right? There's a quarterfinal, semis, and then the finals. You got like if you're gonna have Paul Skeens for one of them, and you save him for the final, well, you might get knocked out in the quarters. You might get knocked out in the semis. So and if you have Tarek Skubal for only one, I think he's going against Great Britain. I think that's what I saw. Anyway, it's a little bit of a shame. So as much as we're celebrating that the best pitchers are now committing more and more to this event, you're still pretty limited in who may be available to you in that last or the most important games.
And look, you'd still rather get 3 or 4 innings from Paul Skeens or Tarek Skubal or Logan Webb than from Kyle Freeland or whoever you would have run out there in those situations in the past. That Puerto Rico bullpen, Edwin Diaz back again after suffering that devastating injury, celebrating in 2023. Nice to see him back out there again. I like to see the blast from the past, like the former prospects getting one more shot out there. Like Jose De Leon's one of those names. You're like, yeah, I remember chasing that guy in some keeper leagues for a long time. Nice to see him get another run out there as well. But I'm with you. I think the relative strength of Pool A is such that even with a slightly down Puerto Rico team, they can come out of this as the pool winners potentially. The interesting thing, this goes back to that Zach Buchanan tiers piece I mentioned. Cuba is just not quite the same Cuba that we've seen in past international competitions. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We don't have to delve into them right now, but it's strange just because it's a place where you just expect greatness given the successes they've had on the international stage. So I don't know what to make of the roster they've put together. I think because of the pool, they absolutely could get through the pool. They could win it. They could be the runner-up and get to the knockout round. But I have a hard time telling myself that they could make a really deep run with the group that they've put together for 2026.
Yeah, it's not an impressive group from what we come to expect from Cuba. I mean, going back decades, Cuba was the team to beat, right? Because all talent stayed home. All talent played in the Olympics versus what was happening for a long time with big leaguers not playing in the Olympics. You didn't have the consolidation of teams like Netherlands for a long time, was just playing with Dutch players, not playing with players from across the kingdom of Netherlands. And so there has been a sort of a long and slow decline, and in part because Cuba for a long time didn't allow defectors to come back and play for the national team. They changed their stripes on that last time around, and they brought back Yoenis Cespedes. They had Luis Robert Jr. Who else did they have last time? Yohan Moncada came back. May have been another player or two, but big league names you're accustomed to seeing out there regularly. And this time around, they have Moncada, but they don't have Luis Robert Jr. Luis said he told Pelota Cubana in December, I think it was, until everyone's allowed to play, I won't ever play for Team Cuba again. So there was some sort of restriction on who was able to come back and play. And certainly until they get that sorted, it's going to be hard to field the best team possible because they have a handful of big leaguers, current big leaguers. They have Yariel Rodriguez in the pitching staff too. But whatever restrictions they have going on are making this a worse team. I don't see them getting out of the group.
Alexi Ramirez is on the roster. How old is Alexi Ramirez now? He played in the 2006 World Baseball Classic. That was the first one. He played well in the 2006 World Baseball Classic. He's 44 years old. He's older than me.
He's got to be the only repeat guy, right? Maybe I should know this. There may be more repeat guys. There are probably more guys who are managing in this that played in the first one than players. That's a long career. It's a long span.
That's amazing. So I hope he's playing. And hope he plays well. That'd be a great story if he did. I mean, you mentioned Moncada. He's probably the most familiar name you'll see up and down that roster. But yeah, I'm bummed. I'm bummed they can't put their best together, which is complicated for the reasons that you mentioned. Canada's really interesting to me in this group. They got the Naylor brothers. Otto Lopez is kind of a sneaky, good player that people maybe don't watch a lot outside of Miami and outside of fantasy circles. Starting outfield there could be really interesting. Got Owen Casey, big side platoon masher who they got in that trade with the Cubs. Denzel Clark in center field, just chasing everything down, catching everything, playing phenomenal defense, and Tyler O'Neill. So you can kind of see a quality starting lineup. And the pitching has some familiar names. The blast from the past that kind of jumped off to me is Philippe Aumont. Going back to one of my first Baseball America prospect books, that's probably one of the first pitching prospects that truly disappointed a much younger version of myself.
It would happen again.
Yes, it would happen many times again. This
is an interesting team. They have Bo Naylor coming back. They have Josh this time. They've gotten buy-in from Jameson Tyon. They don't have Freddie Freeman this time. That's a big blow for them. But Naylor, I mean, a pretty good fill-in at first base. So there's a lot of good talent here. And given the weakness of this pool, I think they could really put it together. I think it's a little bit of a weak infield for me, but it's young talent. Tyler O'Neill went on a heater last time. He could do it again. That I don't know. They're a team to watch. Hopefully they have larger letters on their jersey this time. There's a little bit of a Cyphosaurus. Or I guess not even a Cyphosaurus. That's backward. It was tough to look at last time around. But there's major league talent here, and I think the concern is how quickly you're going to get to a thin part of the rotation and their pitching staff, given the restrictions these guys are going to have.
Yeah, I almost like their bulk guys more than their short relief guys. I mean, you got Soroka, Paxton, Jamison Taillon, Cal Quantrill, but you don't really have any household names that are going to run it up there at 97, 98. So I almost think that those late innings are where they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I'll say this, I should have said this up top. Rosters are written in pencil for the World Baseball Classic. We're recording this almost a week before the tournament actually begins. There's a lot of time for stuff to happen, for guys to pull something.
Are we still pending Joe Ryan news? Is he still status in question?
I think that's still in question, and I would just err on the side of not expecting him to participate. I think anybody dealing with an injury in the days before they're supposed to depart and join their World Baseball Classic camp would probably be on the outside looking in. But hey, stranger things have happened. Two other teams in Pool A. Panama seems like a notch below Canada for me, and again, that's basing their roster just on the guys I'm familiar with from big leagues. A few blasts from the past in there. Jaime Barria is in there. I like that. That's cool.
Dario Agrazal, I covered him in Pittsburgh.
Yeah?
Yep. And the other Logan Allen isn't on this team.
Yeah,
Two teams in a row.
Both Logan Allens on different teams, though. That's pretty awesome. The interesting thing about Panama, they've got a couple nice catchers. Christian Bethencourt is in there. A little bit of a do-everything sort of player. And Johan Camargo. So I think when I look at a team like Panama, in this group, sure, they can get through. They can be one of the top two teams in the pool. I just think the roster might not have that upper-end combination of players you would need to make that run once you get to the knockout stage.
Yeah, I think they're better infield than they are infield and catching situation than they are in the outfield, and I don't feel good about the pitching staff. Yeah, they have a puncher's chance.
Yeah, kind of interesting team there. Colombia on here has also just a great collection of pitchers that spans a few different eras. You have Jose Quintana, you have Julio Teheran, and Luis Patino. That is awesome. They do have some sneaky bats with pop, two that kind of jumped off the page to me, Jorge Alfaro and Jordan Diaz, who I always thought was going to be at least a regular for a little while for the A's. He didn't bust through. Gio Urshela's there. We know he brings a good glove to the left side of the infield. You'll see Harold Ramirez, a guy that had some success in Tampa, among a few other places in the big leagues. So they also look like a team that has enough big league experience, some top-end guys where I could see them being a team that advances out of here too. Like Puerto Rico getting through seems like the most likely, and then you can kind of choose your own adventure from the other teams for the second one out of this group.
Yeah, I don't know if you mentioned him, but Jose Quintana on this team as well is a really nice addition for this team. For me, this group, it's going to go through PR. I think they still have a lot more talent across the board than others do. I'm going to go with Canada to be the number 2. Don't feel strongly in that position, but someone's got to come through, and I think they have the talent and enough pitching to squeeze out just enough wins or maybe get a tiebreaker through. And then I'd probably go Colombia as the biggest challenger to what they have.
Yeah, I was going to take Colombia for my second team through, but I'm with you on Puerto Rico being the pool winner from this group. But yeah, curious to see how Pool A plays out because it's pretty flat near the back 3 or 4 teams. Move on to Pool B, U.S., Mexico, Italy, Great Britain, and Brazil. You mentioned the pitching boost for Team USA earlier. The expectation as we talk here on the 26th of February is 2 starts from Paul Skeens and Logan Webb, assuming the U.S. advances far enough for that to mathematically work out, and 1 from Tarek Skubal. So a big pitching boost compared to Team USA's of World Baseball Classics past. What are your concerns, if any, about the construction of this roster? Are there any potential weak spots?
No. No, there really is not. There are a couple of players you'd rather have over who's there now, but it's splitting hairs at this point. I'd love Garrett Crochet to be there. Probably like to see Matt Chapman there as well. The guys you look at and sort of raise your eyebrow a little bit, like an Ernie Clement. All right, had a great postseason, but is that one of the 6-7 best infielders from the States? Probably not, but he fills a role and can come off the bench and do a lot of good stuff. My concern, truthfully, is simply that the pitching won't line up in an ideal way for them. If you get one Scooble start, I think I saw it was Great Britain. I'm not sure if I was correct on that, but he's going to get one start in the pool play round. All right, you feel good about taking home a W, but you already felt good about taking home a W against Great Britain, and so you're not going to have him for quarterfinals. It sounds like you're going to have a Paul Skeens start in the knockout stage. Sounds like you can have a Logan Webb start for the knockout stage. I don't have concerns about them surviving the pool, but I certainly have concerns about who's going to start that extra must-win game. It's going to be you have Matthew Boyd, you have Nolan McLean, Michael Wacha is an option. Who am I missing? Matthew Boyd. So, they're not bad. They're all-star pitchers or caliber, but it's not like you're not feeling as good starting whichever one of those must start one of the knockout games if they get that far as you would with Webb or Skeens or, of course, Scooble taking the ball again.
Yeah, they got Clayton Kershaw there as a legacy addition to the roster.
I like how clear they made it. He will only be used in mop-up situations. There's no should we trot him out for the final? No, it's it's like the 14-2 game against Cuba last year. They're like, yeah, he could mop up that situation.
Maybe we get a 3-inning save from Clayton Kershaw in the tournament or something weird.
Just spend all the bullets. Why not, man?
Yeah, I mean, what are you saving the arm for at this point? I think Nolan McLean would be a really interesting choice. If the way the schedule comes together and they make it to the final and they've used the bigger names, I think going with that fast riser that could be maybe good enough to be on the next team in 3 years. We know that's a dangerous prediction to make, but I think that'd probably be the choice. But I get the sense that the way they tend to manage these things, it'd be somebody with more experience. And depending on who that opponent is, that could be a factor too. Maybe lefty-righty matters, so maybe Boyd ends up being the choice. They're going to lean heavily on the relievers, though. You mentioned Mason Miller, Griffin Jacks, David Bednar. Hopefully you have all of those guys available when you need them the most. That's the key with the format here. But yeah, I think it's funny. Just one more little callback to the past. Do you remember the starting 9 for the U.S. in the final against Japan in 2023? How many of those players can you name?
Mookie, Bobby. Bobby's on the team, right? Yeah.
He didn't start.
Pete Alonso? No. Was he not on that team? Real Muto. Trey Turner.
Real Muto. Turner, yep. Turner had such a great tournament last time. 5 homers.
Was he the shortstop?
He was. You're at 3. You got JT, Turner, and Betts so far. Goldschmidt
was on the roster. Was he starting?
He started. Yep. I mean, you got one layup from the beginning of the show.
Trout.
Trout started. Yep.
Bregman? He was another team,
nope.
was he? Nolan Arenado.
Yeah. The 2 that I forgot completely.
The corners?
I mean, Kyle Schwarber was the DH, but the 2...
that's right. Yeah.
Cedric Mullins started that final. And Tim Anderson.
I was going to say
Bobby
Anderson.
Witt
That's
Jr.
why I asked if I had the shortstop, because I was thinking Trey maybe played shortstop that game. Tim Anderson was the starter in that one. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a situation where Tim Anderson started, Jeff McNeil came off the bench to pinch hit, and Bobby Witt Jr. pinch ran. Come on.
We don't know what we got in this kid, but he's got wheels. Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I also another one, not to bag on Ernie Clement. He's a great ball player, but could Trey Turner not have fit on this team? I haven't seen the reporting out there of whether it was his choice or the team's choice, but given what he did last time around, you'd think it would be his call to say no to the opportunity. He still obviously can play, but I mean, it's a team this is a loaded team, even without some of these players, Corbin Carroll and and Joe Ryan potentially. Even with some of the restrictions, I mean, this is a true all-star team that they're running out there.
Yeah, it really is. Trey Turner, it says his phone never rang.
So it's a phone problem.
Really? Yeah. So what? Send him an email.
Yeah, that's a strange one.
That's weird that he would want to play and not. Bryce Harper's in. That's cool. We haven't seen Bryce Harper play in a World Baseball Classic before.
What, they didn't want to ask?
Happened a little later than we all would have liked.
They didn't want to ask him if he was willing to back up Bryce Terang. Yeah, that's bizarre. I would have thought he'd be an easy call, but
there might be a story there. We'll have to see if we can get more information.
Only we had a great Phillies beat writer, you know.
We have two awesome Phillies beat writers, as people may know. If you didn't pick up on the tone, Matt Gelb, Charlotte Barnes do a great job covering the Phillies for The Athletic. In the pool with the U.S. team, though, we've got Mexico. I think a really good lineup here. I think they have good defensive players where you want them, right? I mean, you've got Alejandro Kirk. Joey Ortiz can pick it at short. Alec Thomas can play a good center field. And even if Ortiz and Thomas are your 8-9 hitters or your 7-8 hitters, you got other guys around this lineup that can hit. Randy Arozarena, Jarren Duran, Jonathan Aranda. Probably get a little Rowdy Tellez in there at first base, DH. Maybe he pops a key homer for you at some point. I think the back end, they're set at closer. They got Andres Munoz to close out games for them. I think the only question you'd have about Mexico that kind of keeps them in that next tier of possible contenders, but maybe not favorites, is just the quality of their pitching as a whole, right? That might be where they're just going to be a little bit light. But they do have Robert Garcia, closer from the Rangers, is in the mix there. They got Taijuan Walker, Javier Assad, and Taj Bradley. Actually, I think Bradley actually just dropped out, so they won't have Taj Bradley. But Javier Assad and Taijuan Walker look like two of the favorites to be their kind of starter bulk types.
Okay, I didn't see the news. I'm seeing it now on theathletic.com that Taj Bradley is going to stay with the Twins. That's a bummer. My thought was, as I look at this team, they have just enough to convince you. They were a great team last time, and they're bringing back much of that team. The outfield, I think, is really strong. You got Randy Arozarena, Jarren Duran, and Alec Thomas across. The infield's a little bit weak, I think. You're trusting guys like Nick Gonzalez to be, I think, an everyday second baseman. Joey Ortiz at shortstop. They have major leaguers, but it's not, middle of the lineup type guys typically. Kirk is a really good ad for them behind the plate, and then it's real major league pitching there too. So I think it's a really strong team, but a lot's gonna have to go right to get past the U.S. again, given how they've leveled up.
Yeah, I think it's good enough to contend for sure. Like, that's just the level I'd put on them. A really well-built roster. Looking forward to watching that squad and seeing if they have any pop-up guys that end up playing bigger roles than expected, but a nice quality roster all around. Italy, to me, I was thinking about like other teams in the tournament that look similar. I think their roster looks kind of similar to Canada's in terms of overall quality. Probably a notch better because I think with Aaron Nola being in the fold for Italy, they have a starting pitcher that I like more than anybody that Canada can throw out there as a starter. Lineup fits really nicely. I think our pronunciations of Dominic Canzone could be different by the time this tournament is over. But when you put Canzone, who was like really good on the big side of a platoon when called upon after Victor Robles got hurt last year, with the likes of Vinny Pasquantino, Jack Caglione, Kyle Teal, kind of an interesting mix of a big leaguer that's broken through and had a really nice level of success in Pasquantino, an underrated guy in Canzone, and maybe two future fixtures of Team Italy, and also just guys that are going to be increasingly important to their major league teams with Cags and Teal. Like this Italy team has my attention.
Yeah, no, I think the starting pitcher ads are really good. If you look back at my dream team for Team USA, Aaron Nola was one of my honorable mentions. Didn't make the team, and he gets recruited away to Italy. Good for them. I have a soft spot for the manager of this team, Francisco Cervelli. I covered him at Pittsburgh. Got to see him at the winter meetings. He's very excited about this opportunity. I think they've done a nice job adding to the roster. I think I'm too inside baseball that I looked at the roster and I was like, that's way too many left-handed hitters. They are loaded with left-handed hitters across the board. But they can probably figure it out. It's a shocker to me that Kyle Teal has Italian heritage, but you know what? You can't just go by the name sometimes, man. You got to look into this stuff. That's
look
why
at where the Logan Allens are playing.
Aroldis Chapman was trying to get British heritage. Stuff happens, man. So This is a team that I think has gotten significantly better since last time around. I don't know how trustworthy that bullpen's going to be. You're bringing, the Adam Ottavino type out of retirement, but I mean, it's guys coming out who can, certainly still huck it from some arm angle, and they've got nothing left to save it for. So, give it a shot.
Yeah, got a few names that Gordon Graceffo is in there, Ron Marinaccio, Sam Aldegari. So the players we've seen around big league rosters that could be part of that. But it's the same kind of thing where you're like, okay, they don't have the elite shutdown relievers. That's where I think some of the deeper teams in the pool could do a little bit of damage against Italy and make life difficult for them as the tournament rolls along. Great Britain is in this pool. I have to ask you the most important question in this entire show. Did they bring back those hastily made jerseys from 2023? Like, those were just amazing.
I think they tried to do a better job. I think Nike took over a lot of making of this, which means we're probably bringing back in like the Fanatics deal that people love to hate.
Are the pants okay? Now I have a follow-up question. The
Nike
pants aren't
Nike designing
transparent,
typically means that Fanatics is manufacturing. But anyway, we'll try to. That's a different podcast. I would imagine with 3 years to work on it, they'll have fixed a couple of things, but you never do know. We seem to have like a real uniform snafu every time we do one of these tournaments. So we'll just have to figure that out. They still would not rate highly on my ranking of the uniforms, which again, another podcast. But Vance Worley, guy I covered in Pittsburgh, this dude is still throwing heaters. Not terribly fast, but he's still pitching in the World Baseball Classic. Harry Ford, I'm interested to see what he has. Jazz Chisholm is on this team now. There's talent on this team. There's not a ton of major league talent, but guys, a number of guys who sort of are at like the prospect tier that you've had an eye on. That hey, this is an opportunity to see them, and a guy like Ford, you just like I've been waiting for an opportunity to watch this guy in real games, and didn't think it would come in WBC, but here it is.
Yeah, I think it's cool that Jazz actually is playing in this tournament. Glad he's a part of it. I think Jazz Chisholm tends to make games more fun. Gary Gill-Hill is the pitching prospect from the Rays organization that's on this roster. I'd like to get a look at him in the tournament, but I did look at the uniforms. We'll throw them up if you're watching on YouTube. They're a pretty just basic, clean-looking uni. Don't think I'd pay $180 for one, but if it was like $15 at a thrift store or something, maybe I'd pick one up.
Well, they did themselves a favor on the white ones. They added some piping because last time they didn't have anything. It was just gray, just a gray outfit.
White with red piping, navy blue lettering. Great Britain just in block letters on the front, and the old Union Jack there on the right sleeve. So, I mean, $15 seems pretty fair. That's going to cost you $180 if you want to get it over at Nike.com. Brazil is the final team in this group. Prospect junkies might remember Eric Pardinho from years and years ago. You mentioned, though, they have a rising pitching prospect that's actually going to have some eyes on him in this tournament. Yeah,
so they have Joseph Contreras, right-hander, son of Jose Contreras. And I was reading Kyle McDaniel at ESPN has a story up on that. You can go take a look. 35th ranked prospect for him. I don't have Keith Laws up, right now, if he has that out yet. But he's a right-hander out of Georgia and will be drafted in this upcoming draft. And this is an opportunity. We don't get a lot of these of amateur guys to come in and sort of get their first big showcase in the WBC. So why not for Brazil? It's a team that doesn't have a lot of even pro talent on this roster. So it's his chance to pitch for a team that hasn't been in the WBC since I think it was 2013. So they qualified for it, and they get to, I don't know, at least show us a little bit of something. With Contreras, will probably get just one start.
Yeah, the reward, unfortunately, for Brazil qualifying was ending up in a really difficult pool to get out of. I think they're clearly, for me, the fifth team of the five in the group. But I think it's cool to watch these teams, see if anyone sticks out that we haven't seen before, especially with someone like Contreras, get our first look at him. I think that's really exciting overall. Coming out of Pool B, I assume we're both safely taking the chalk that the U.S. does win the pool. Correct me if I'm putting a prediction out there that is not yours. So who would be the second team through out of Pool B for you?
I still have Mexico, but I have I think a fondness for that Italy roster that I could see it happening for them. But I still think it's Mexico. I think they're the second team to beat there. It's a lot of talent, a lot of athleticism on that roster, and they're coming off of a successful run last time.
Yeah, we're in lockstep there. That Mexico roster is elevated enough above Team Italy where anything can happen in pool play, and that's why we do it. But I think Mexico's clearly the second best team in this group right now.
Can I offer a defense of lockstep here? We mentioned the powers don't change that quickly when you're talking internationally. And that's certainly true. But also, the format of this tournament is such that the teams don't switch very often. There are a couple, maybe 3 new teams in this tournament that weren't in it last time. You're basically running it back with the exact same teams, many of them running it back with the same players. So it's not like we hit free agency. Well, I guess the U.S. kind of did. It's not like you hit free agency internationally and you're totally changing how your team looks in the outlook for the coming season. 3 years later, it looks basically like it did last time. And so some shockers can happen. Teams can go 2-2, and there's a tiebreaker that you have to deal with, or a number of tiebreakers you might get to unlock. But we have a pretty good idea of where these teams are at, and a team like Brazil, we know, has no shot. Even if they're up and coming, even if they have some fun young players, it's not like Brazil's odds have changed a crazy amount in the last 3 years, except that they didn't even qualify last time, so technically it was non-existent. But that's why lockstep happens here. Is this just doesn't change that quickly on the international stage.
And just one more thing I'll add about Brazil or any team that qualifies that doesn't always play in this tournament is the longer-term impact of being in this tournament. You look 4 or 5 World Baseball Classics down the road, and things might be a lot different in a place where a program is growing and changing too. So I would remain open-minded to that as something that's still very important, even if a team comes in and doesn't win a game in pool play or only wins 1 game in pool play and mostly gets blown out. Like, there's still a lot there for the long term. On to Pool C: Japan, Australia, Korea, Czechia, and Chinese Taipei, Taiwan, depending on what you prefer. I think the Japanese team is obviously among the favorites, and I have a hard time believing that in the right scenario they wouldn't put Shohei Ohtani in a game to pitch again, but maybe there's some kind of
Yeah, I'm not even sure if he's permitted to. It might even be an insurance thing.
It might be like a hard ban this time for reasons. So as much as I want to say they could always do it, I don't think they actually can this time. You look at the rotation they've got: Yamamoto, Kikuchi, Takahashi, Sugano. Still a nice 4 starters, better than a lot of teams in the tournament, but probably not the typical level we've come to expect from the 3 or 4 best starters that you're going to see on this roster in any given tournament.
It's not as good of a team as it was last time, and that's not. I mean, that was probably the best roster we've ever seen in the World Baseball Classic. You could argue that the current U.S. one tops it, but I don't know. The pitching on that one was so good, with Yamamoto, Sasaki, Imanaga, Ohtani, Darvish still at that point. So good, and they had the hitters that maybe weren't known so much stateside, but obviously were over there and now have come over from Japan to the States for this year. So the hitting group is very similar to what it was last time. It'll have Shohei in the middle there. It'll have Murakami and Yoshida and Nakamoto, these guys that we're sort of getting to know now or have gotten to know in recent years in the States. But I don't think they're vulnerable in this group, but I don't think their odds probably are nearly as good as they were last time coming into the tournament for actually being the favorite to win the whole thing.
Yeah, I think there might be 2 teams in Pool D that are very problematic for Japan once you get to the knockout round. I think that's the way I kind of see things coming together overall. Still a really good position player group, absolutely still good enough to make a run and defend their title and possibly repeat. But I just came away from this roster going, it's just down a little bit because the bar was set so high at the last tournament. I had forgotten in that final against the U.S. in 2023, they got contributions from Murakami and Okamoto. Both of those guys homered in that game. Murakami homered off of Merrill Kelly. Okamoto homered off of Kyle Freeland. So yeah, they had everything locked in that tournament. The rest of the teams in this pool: Australia couple familiar names there, of course. A guy that went 1-1 in his draft, Travis Bazzana, a guy that we've been waiting for in the big leagues for a few years, and Curtis Mead. And then a lot of guys we haven't seen much of. The Brewers fans listening will notice that Dave Nilsson, former Brewer, is managing Team Australia here. So some familiar names there on the coaching staff. But what's your impression of Australia as a team that is going to try and make their way out of this group?
Yeah, I got a chance to talk to Dave Nilsson at the winter meetings. These guys played the Olympics, played the World Baseball Classic early on. It's a team where I'm excited to see the young talent. I mean, really excited to see Bazzana. Curtis Mead, get some time seeing him. There are some names you'll recognize here, but it's not a group you would trust that much, especially with the pitching staff. They're just not that much, certified pro talent or American pro talent or stateside.
Yeah.
So it's a group that could make some noise, but I'm mostly excited to see the young guys.
That's where I'm at as well. Korea in this group. Hyunjin Ryu looks like he's going to be in the mix pitching here in Korea. I like that. Riley O'Brien was scheduled to pitch. He is hurt, so he will not be a part of that. He's in the closer mix for the Cardinals, but a spring injury has knocked him out of the tournament. A couple of intriguing bats that we have seen come over stateside. Haesung Kim and Jung-Ho Lee, most notably a couple other big leaguers that we've seen kind of vying for playing time. Jemai Jones, Shea Whitcomb also going to be a part of the mix as well. I think for as good of a league as the KBO is, and it's certainly a league that's on the rise, and baseball to Korea is very strong, but I'm wondering why this roster doesn't have a little bit more firepower on it. I was a little bit surprised when I started digging into it that they didn't have a bit more talent.
Yeah, it does lack some of the oomph you'd expect. South Korea has been so good on, the international stage at so many levels, and you've seen a lot of great young players coming over from there now. Hyunjin Ryu is very much on the older side of things. He's still pitching, still doing all right. But it does lack star power. I think there are complementary players they've added this year that I think can really help. Jemai Jones from the Tigers, he rakes against lefties. That's a good opportunity for him. You got Dane Dunning, you got Riley O'Brien. So they've added some guys that will help. And it might be enough in this group.
I think there's enough talent here where they could be the second best team for sure, behind Japan coming out of Pool C. Czechia, I think, is really interesting because you remember that moment in the last World Baseball Classic. They had a pitcher strike out Shohei Ohtani, and I think we famously learned baseball's not his full-time job. He's an electrician, which is really, really cool. And this is a country where I think baseball is growing, and I think it's interesting that they don't have big leaguers coming back who have a connection, but obviously we're not born there. There's not been a player born in Czechia to play in the big leagues yet. We're still waiting for that to happen, but this is kind of in that Brazil vein for me of just hey, let's just see what happens. This is going to be fun. Enjoy the ride, even if there's not a lot of familiar names.
Yeah, give us another moment. Give us something. That's one of the most talked about moments from that last WBC. You got Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and you got the Czechia player, the pitcher striking out Ohtani with just some of this below the hitting speed stuff. It's a team that's always worth watching. There's been a ton of really good stuff over the years done, articles, videos about this team and following them around and seeing how guys balance real life and real jobs with pro ball over there and working with the national team. So it's light on big league experience, but it's going to be a fun team to watch. They sort of make it worth your while.
One more team in this group, Chinese Taipei. Another place where you have a professional baseball league. It's still a level even below the KBO, but clearly some international success. And I'm just curious if there's anybody, sleepers, anyone you're curious about on that roster in this tournament.
Yeah, a big one for me is Hao Yu Lee, Tigers prospect. They've had around people in Detroit really excited about him. So he'd be the primary one I'm looking at. I won't pretend to have a lot of depth of knowledge of their team, but there are some names you'll recognize. Stuart Fairchild, Sung-Chi Chang is a guy that I certainly recognize from the Pittsburgh system. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit of learning here about some of these guys who haven't played stateside yet.
Yeah. I guess Stuart Fairchild is one of the few familiar names that you might see kind of sprinkled into that outfield mix. Yu Chang, but there's still, like, to me, another team that I want to learn more about them during the tournament because I know very little about them entering the tournament here in 2026. We expect Japan to be the team that cruises through and wins Pool C, but who is your pick to be the second team out of this group?
This is a tough one. I don't feel strongly, honestly, about any of them. I noted Riley O'Brien earlier. You noted in our notes that he's injured, so there's news for me. He's out. I'm between Korea and Australia right now. I think I will, despite not knowing their pitching stats whatsoever, I will go Australia this time. But I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Korea make the jump to the second spot here.
Yeah, my gut was Korea. I mean, a team that's had more success in international competition overall. I think the depth might be better than I'm giving it credit for. So I think that's, to me, the thing that gives them a little bit of an edge over Australia. But I'm really curious to see how that second spot especially plays out coming out of Pool C.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. Australia probably just doesn't have the pitching to do it. But I just pulled up the odds, too, for winning the whole thing. And Australia's fourth from the bottom, so I may have made a little bit of a error here. But it's not like Korea is that. I mean, they're not. I guess they're the butt in the middle. Anyway,
yeah, winning it's one thing.
Probably
but
Korea, but I
I
have to break our lockstep, so I'll go with Australia.
Yeah, we can't agree on everything. That would be utterly ridiculous. One more group to get to. It's Pool D. This one is loaded. I like this group a lot. I'm going to have a very difficult time picking the two teams that I think are going to get out. I think Venezuela is where we're going to start. I love the players on this team are awesome collectively. I mean, I'm obviously a big Jackson Churio guy. Who doesn't love Ronald Acuna? They've got, I think, just high-quality major leaguers up and down the lineup. Wilyer Abreu rounds out their outfield. Ezequiel Tovar at short. Gleyber Torres, Andres Jimenez, Wilson Contreras, Michael Garcia, Eugenio Suarez, Luis Arias. There aren't enough spots to play all those guys. That's good. That's a star-level, top-end, definite contender to win the whole thing sort of roster. William Contreras and Salvador Perez behind the plate. Again, how do you make all the pieces fit? This is a great problem to have if you're in the position of Omar Lopez, who's going to be managing this squad. Some stars on the bench, too, by the way. Yeah. Robinson Chirinos is the bench coach, but Miguel Cabrera is the hitting coach. Victor Martinez is the assistant manager. Johan Santana is a pitching coach. Like, they're bringing everybody. I love it.
This is an awesome position player group. I love what they put together there. The catching situation. I mean, they'll have a baked-in DH from that position. Infield strong. Outfield is fantastic with Abreu, Acuna, and Churio across. My biggest concern would be the rotation here. They have Ranger Suarez. They have some real names here. Eduardo Rodriguez, not sure what he has at this stage. Cater Montero, of course, in Detroit has had varied success. But when you look at what they had last time, you say, well, that was Jesus Luzardo, it was Pablo Lopez. Would feel better with those names in the mix as well. So it's going to be a little thin, I think, from the pitching perspective. But if they can balance it right and start some of their lesser starters and lesser games, and they might match up pretty well and be a really scary quarterfinals, potentially semifinals matchup.
Yeah, I think the bullpen will be all right, though, too. Palencia, Edward Bizardo, Jose Buteau, Angel Zerpa, lefty that's now with the Brewers, who was with the Royals. Like they've got some quality, even if they don't have that top-end starting pitching compared to years past. The lineup can hit any pitching in this tournament. So that's the thing that I think makes them really, really exciting. As I mentioned, though, Pool D is loaded. The Dominican Republic also in this group. I mean, we've been kind of light on the pitching for most of the teams in the tournament, even relative to previous norms. Yeah, here I think they have some high-end quality, too.
Especially the bullpen in the Dominican is where, I mean, you have a bunch of like potential closers, would-be closers, that if they can get the starting pitching to line up properly, that gets so good that they have a great lineup. I mean, so if you're sleeping on the DR because of what happened last time around, like them getting knocked out by the Puerto Rico, not even get to the knockout stage, don't do that. This is a great team.
Yeah, so it's Christopher Sanchez and Sandy Alcantara kind of as the 1-2 at the top. Luis Severino was actually really good when he wasn't pitching in Sacramento last year. The home road split's going to bear that out. Brian Bayo's there for some depth. And then the bullpen, 3 or 4 guys that you could definitely trust late. Abner Uribe, Camilo Doval, Gregory Soto, Carlos Estevez, and Dennis Santana, like 2 guys that from a fantasy perspective I don't love as traditional closers, but they're credible major league relievers. If they're your 4th or 5th best reliever, you're doing great. Oh, it's Sir Anthony Dominguez is in there too. So this is a really, really strong group of pitchers. Been one of the best pitching groups in the entire tournament. And not surprisingly, the position player group is also really good too. I mean, we'll start in the outfield and kind of work our way in. Julio Rodriguez, Juan Soto, Fernando Tatis Jr., and then you've got Oneil Cruz probably as an extra outfielder, or maybe you put him in your DH mix depending on how you want to align your infield. But Junior Caminero, Vlad Jr., Manny Machado, Ketel Marte, Geraldo Perdomo, Jeremy Pena, Ahmed Rosario, and Carlos Santana probably just coming off the bench behind the plate. Austin Wells and Agustin Ramirez. It's interesting because Ramirez's defense was in question last year. Bad defensive numbers across the board. Worked on it a lot this winter. Kind of wonder what they'll do behind the plate if they'll go with the better defender in Wells as the primary option.
Right. Yeah, they might have to do that quite a bit. He's certainly got the stick, Ramirez, to do it, but Wells might have to do some heavy lifting as the defense first guy. The rest of the lineup though is so strong. I mean, there was a reason they got knocked out last time. It wasn't completely fluky. This is looking at the Fangraphs write-up of this right now. They're adding to that group they had last time: Vladdy, Junior Caminero, Geraldo Perdomo, Fernando Tatis, and Oneil Cruz. That's a pretty good recruiting class. You did a pretty nice job there. And so the concern with this group is probably like you're not seeing top end starting pitching, but it's solid. It's good, right? What version of Sandy Alcantara are you going to get right now? I'm very happy for them having Christopher Sanchez. Behind him, though, it's Severino, Alcantara, who am I missing? Brian Bayo. Like, they're all good, but it's not like Skeen Skubal type of, and even Webb, I think. Feeling good about that top 3. So that's my question. But man, I love the way the bullpen stacks up. Probably best bullpen here. I mean, it's like 6 guys I think
one of the deepest,
in recent years.
Yeah. Maybe like the depth makes it the best collective group of relievers, or at least second best collective group of relievers. I mean, just really well built team. Absolutely a contender to not only win Pool D, but also to make a run and actually win the entire tournament. That would not be that surprising. What's going to be interesting, though, is that I think the bottom teams in this group can do enough to wreak havoc. This could be a group where we get a surprise, even though we like those first 2 teams a ton. The Netherlands are back, and they bring quality to every tournament. It's not a roster that's quite as star-packed as Venezuela or the Dominican Republic, but it's got experience. You look at the infield: Ozzy Albies, Xander Bogaerts, Didi Gregorius. Didi's been, I've seen a good write-up on him just as a guy that speaks several languages. He can connect with everybody on this roster. He's fluent in the languages of like every player on the roster. Just a truly amazing thing to have. In the outfield, you got Jurickson Profar, Ceddanne Rafaela, great defender in center field. Maybe a question of who your third starter is out there. Drew Jones. Yeah,
Drew Jones with his pops as the manager.
Yeah, and like I'm going to say maybe that'll make the difference. Maybe that'll be the tiebreaker early on. But I think 3 years ago, that was also in the Zach Buchanan write-up, just trying to like forecast the future, was Drew Jones having a prominent role in this tournament. So I hope that happens to make Zach right, but also because there is a spot kind of for that third outfielder that's a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, the real question with this team, like many, pitching staff. They have a ton of major league talent across the position player group. The pitching staff is just not as recognizable. I mean, they have Kenley Jansen to throw some late innings. Antoine Kelly is a recognizable name, but beyond that, it's not a ton of guys who have major league experience. So that's going to be the question: is the position player group good enough and deep enough to stay ahead of whatever damage is wrought by this pitching staff?
Jair Jurgen is now the pitching coach on this team. I was looking for him on the roster when I first opened it up. It's like, is he still going? And no, he's the pitching coach now, but that's cool. Best hats in the tournament?
I mean, I love a lot about what Netherlands has going. I have a story coming out about them next week, more of a look at history. But great hats. They got honk ball. There's no better branding than Netherlands, Kingdom of Netherlands baseball.
Yeah, definitely a soft spot in my heart for some obvious reasons, but tough to see how they get the pitching to work if they get out of pool play. I think that's where you start to worry about the breakdown for them. Quality squad, though, overall. Israel also in this group. We have seen some interesting performances in past years. I think questions about the pitching staff are still prevalent there. Common refrain for many, many teams here. You have big leaguers, but not necessarily high-impact big leaguers. I would say if I were trying to choose my best pitcher for a starting opportunity off Team Israel, we're talking what, Dean Kramer? Yeah, I mean, that's fine. It's just not. It's comparable to a lot of the second-tier teams in the tournament, I think would be the way I would grade the pitching overall.
Yeah, we got to run up to him right now and say, how many games are you going to start in the WBC? like we do at Skates and Scuba. He's like, every time I'm allowed. Okay, all right, then we feel better about that.
Give me as many starts as they'll let me have. They'll let them go, right?
Yeah. And then the bullpen has a little bit more. Tommy Canley's there, Matt Bowman, Zach Weiss, another guy with some major league experience. So Robert Stock, a man of Twitter. So they have some talent. They're the big ads from the position player group. You have to like for this one. Spencer Horwitz, contact first guy that we've seen in Pittsburgh. Harrison Bader, I think, is the big ad for them in the outfield. That's gonna help them a lot because the position player group is relatively anonymous. Guys you've seen along the way, but not star level talent.
Yeah, Matt Merkowitz, we were excited about him a few years ago. He's in the mix there. Troy Johnston, now in the Rockies organization, trying to break through for a few years with the Marlins. He actually will get a chance to play this year. Garrett Stubbs, famously the backup catcher in Philly for the better part of the last half decade or so now. So those are your position player guys that you're more familiar with. I think this is an opportunity.
No Jock Peterson this time.
No. They could use another bat. That would have been nice if they could have got him. But Spencer Horwitz is a little bit underrated, I think, as far as what he does offensively. It's not big time power at first base, but well above average in terms of his overall ability at the dish. So I think it'll take a couple guys like that just going off if Israel wants to make a run out of Pool D. And then Nicaragua is the final team here in the mix. And Dusty Baker is out there as the manager. That's like the tagline for this team is Dusty Baker's last ride as manager.
Dusty and Friends.
Dusty and Friends.
Also known as the team where that's where Jeter Downs went. I'll have you know, by way of starting off on Nicaragua, they are the only team with lower odds of winning this tournament than Brazil. So the outlook is not great. Mark Vientos, though, there's a name on this team.
Yep.
There he is. So it's not completely devoid of talent. They have some guys, but it's obviously an uphill climb, especially in this group, which I think is the best one. The best one we are seeing in this tournament.
Yeah, that's the key. Is I just think they're in a spot where pulling the upset is really, really difficult. Chesler Cuthbert is a name that Royals fans are probably familiar with. Prospect of a few years ago. If you're a real Dynasty Keeper League junkie, maybe you've seen that one before. But I was looking up and down this group of pitchers, and there's a few familiar names like Erasmo Ramirez is out there, Carlos Rodriguez, J.C. Ramirez. There's guys we've seen in the big leagues, but just not guys you'd expect to be able to handle, especially the firepower of Venezuela and the Dominican Republic in particular. That's where I'm just they just don't have the pitching necessary to compete with the two best teams in their group.
Winning a game, I think, will be a pretty good outcome for them if they can beat Israel or give Netherlands a game. But it's getting your feet under you. It's good international experience. They worked their way here. They had a harder road than a lot of teams. So that'll be a good one. But I don't have them coming out of this group.
Win one for Dusty, but no, we do not have them come out of this group. I'm Chalk City coming out as far as the two teams. I think it's Venezuela and Dominican Republic, and I'm picking which one wins the group and which one's the runner-up is basically the coin flip of who wins their head-to-head matchup in pool play. I think. Yeah.
I'm high on Dominican. I have Dominican as the one, and and Venezuela coming in after DR.
I'll flip the order just to be different because of the Churio factor. I was recording this. I got my Brewers Grill logo hat on, so it would feel wrong to pick against Jackson Churio while wearing that hat. But yeah, I think the pool play, barring some massive surprises, will still be entertaining, but is going to set up a knockout round that should be excellent. My question for you, as you think about the final, who gets there? And who wins the whole tournament?
I'll set you up my semifinals. From the Pool A, B side of the bracket, I have Puerto Rico and the States getting to the semifinal. On the other side, I have Japan and Dominican Republic. I have Dominican Republic beating Japan to get to the final. I just think the pitching isn't going to be quite there enough, and I think Dominican Republic lineup is so, I'd say, underrated. No one's rating these that hard, but do not overlook that lineup. It's so good. It's so stacked top to bottom. It has lefty, it has righty, it has contact, it has power. It's got speed, it's got depth, it's got guys that can come in late in the game. There's so much there. And then the U.S., I do have beating Puerto Rico. A fully loaded Puerto Rico, I'd like to see that matchup. But given all they have going on there, I think they've done well to just get to the semifinals. And then I actually will not go chalk. I'm going to go Dominican Republic over the U.S. And a large reason for that is what I talked about earlier, is I don't know who's going to make these starts. In your knockout round, you have a Skeens and you have a Logan Webb. I don't know that they will necessarily save those. Let's say your first game is U.S.-Mexico in what I have. U.S.-Mexico, you start Skeens, I think, to make sure you get past it. Well, you just burned him. That's the last time you get to play him. So Skeens wins you that game. And I think you have Logan Webb going in the semifinals. They could save somebody else, but then that means your finals against the Dominican, you're starting McLean or Matthew Boyd or I don't have the roster in front of me, but a couple of other good arms, potentially all-star arms. But then, to me, that levels the playing field if you get an Alcantara on the other side, or I think at that point it becomes much more of a battle of lineups. And this Dominican lineup, I think, is right up there with the U.S. Could even be better. So that for me it's going to be a slugfest and a battle of weary arms at that point. And I think that the U.S. has depth, certainly, but once you get past Skeens and Skubal and then Webb, I think you're much more vulnerable.
Yeah, that's a good breakdown, man. I think I'm going to go with a little bit of chalk from the left side. I think the U.S. does get to the final. I'm going to stick with my Venezuela call. I think it's a U.S.-Venezuela call. I think Venezuela's got the bats to bang. I think your shape of the pitching argument as like a concern for the U.S. just is fair. I think with Venezuela, the question everyone is going to have, as we alluded to, is do they have enough quality starting pitching to get through? I don't know if it's going to matter. I think they can win games 9-7 if they have to. And I think ultimately the bats, the position player groups are going to shine through in this tournament despite having more aces out there for Team USA. So I'll say Venezuela is the winner of the World Baseball Classic over the U.S. and a little bit of a surprise.
We're so concerned about being chalked that we just put the greatest Team USA up for silver. But no, I think people probably don't understand just how vulnerable teams are in the knockout stage. It is one loss and you're out. It is one bad start from somebody, and you are really limited from who you can turn to next. And so as nice as it is to have the depth of this U.S. pitching staff, as nice as it is to have Clayton Kershaw in there, it's you need to get a lead. And if your bats go cold one time against a good starter on the other side, you need everything to go right 3 times in a row. So yeah, the U.S. getting to the finals would represent obviously a great tournament. Losing it would be a huge disappointment, but I think losing it to Japan or Dominican or Venezuela, those are really good teams on the other side. As much as the U.S. Outlook has changed radically in the last couple of years with who they've added to this team, those teams have been really good and had their best players coming to this tournament for a long time.
Yeah, Venezuela's never actually reached the championship game in this tournament. I think this roster was similarly loaded 3 years ago when the U.S. knocked them out Had to lead into the 8th inning. Trey Turner's grand slam was the turning point in that one. So I think maybe a little bit of payback for Venezuela in the final for the U.S. if those two teams can actually survive and make it through the way we are forecasting. Nez, it's always fun chopping it up with you. Appreciate you coming by and sharing your insights and your enthusiasm for this tournament because, again, I think it's something we need. We should be excited about better than spring training baseball because this is a lot better than spring training and it only comes around once every 3 years. And as we said up top, things change a lot in 3 years.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to see every time we come out of this tells us a lot about what the conversation is going to be around this tournament in the coming years. So this is 20 years of the WBC this year, 06 to 2026. And the narrative coming into this is huge momentum for the tournament, for the states, for everything, right? This tournament now has the feel that they were always looking for of the best players, the stars wanting to play. The last team to buy in was the states, and specifically U.S. pitchers. I just wrote about this last week. And even now you're still seeing like some restrictions that like how do we get teams to be on board? How do we get agents to be on board? How do we get Tarek Skubal to pitch 2 times instead of 1? That would change my feelings about the knockout stage. But this event has had huge momentum. It's got signature moments. Even after Adam Jones robbing Manny Machado in 2017, it didn't have the feel it had 3 years ago after Ohtani versus Trout. And so how this goes, I think, does dictate a lot about where things head in the next couple of years. We are headed for turmoil in the baseball world. The WBC can sort of be the shining star for them. At least in 4 years, we're going to have the WBC again, and everyone's going to want in again because this one went well. Then that's a huge positive for the sport. If the U.S. gets bounced in the quarters and fewer people care and people get injured again, and that becomes the reigning narrative, obviously it's kind of a challenging moment, not just for the sport, but not just for Major League Baseball, but for the tournament that they hold so dear. So it's if only for that reason, something to watch because it's going to determine actually a lot of, I think, about global fan sentiment for the next 4 years.
Yeah, I hope it comes out positive. That's the main thing. I don't care if my predictions end up being wildly wrong. I just want the overall vibes to be good. Like we're not talking about multiple crushing injuries and just other terrible things that could put a mark on the tournament.
Yeah, no injuries, close knockout games. That would be a great result. It doesn't matter who wins. Japan continuing its reign of having the most WBCs and winning again. That would be great. The U.S. winning with its best team yet. That would be great for getting guys to do it in the future. So I put a target on the U.S.'s back in a way that I don't think there is a target on the U.S.'s back right now. Right? They have this loaded roster, but I don't think anyone is saying like it's necessarily theirs to lose. Japan has owned this event. The Dominican coming back after getting knocked out in the pool play stage, that would be a great story. Puerto Rico surviving despite all the losses to their roster this year, that would be fantastic. Venezuela putting it together when they don't have nearly the pitching staff that other teams do, but doing it on the back of an incredible lineup. There's a lot of cool ways for this to turn out, and then you're always going to have that one underdog team that, even if it doesn't make it past the knockout stage, is in the baseball conversation, is in the collective consciousness for a few days and sort of sticks in your memory as you head into the next tournament.
What I really want is for a team that we said that doesn't have enough pitching to have phenomenal pitching and have that carry them through the tournament. That's what I want. I want that kind of twist added in as well. Let us know your predictions for the tournament in the Discord. The conversation will be happening there all tournament long. We'll have great coverage on The Athletic as well. Several writers covering games in person, which is a really exciting thing. You can feel the buzz at those parks during those games. And it's on my list of things to get to one of these springs. Maybe by the end of this spring, I'll sneak into a World Baseball Classic game. As in, like, I'll pay for a ticket or get a credential. I will not climb a fence and sneak in through the auxiliary entrances or anything like that. I will actually
not that
go
you've thought about
proper
this
channels.
Not that you have looked at ballpark blueprints.
Never done that. I would never do such a thing. Stephen, thank you again for the time. Let's enjoy this tournament. That is going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We are back with you tomorrow.